Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, July 28th, 2019, and today we're going to be looking at a 2020 presidential election prediction between Vice President Joe Biden, of course, under the President Barack Obama administration, versus President Donald Trump. Before I get into this video, I just want to see which theme you guys personally like the best. I'll start off with the dark theme, which has a pretty dark background, and pretty much the map stays the same. Terminal leaves everything pretty much black, and then it just fills in with each color. Light is pretty bright, which is why I don't use it. I think that it's just pretty much glaring on the computer screen. Same thing with contrast. Metallic is what I currently use, and default definitely has that original 270 look. I'm actually going to go ahead and use the dark theme for this video. I typically use metallic, but make sure to comment down which one you guys want in future videos. So this matchup should be one of the more interesting ones. Also, if I sound a little bit softer, it's because I'm trying not to be too loud. It's like 11 p.m. right now. But I'm on vacation as well. But looking at this, I guess, matchup between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, this is the matchup that was always meant to be. Back in 2016, Joe Biden was expected to run for president, had around 15% in polling, and then announced that he would not challenge Hillary Clinton for the nomination. I guess that pretty much cleared the pathway for Hillary Clinton's nomination if you don't include Bernie Sanders. But Joe Biden right now has a pretty strong lead nationwide. He has about 30% of the Democratic primary vote for a nationwide, I guess consistently nationwide in terms of polling, which shows that they're definitely on to something here. The second place mark definitely has been taken into consideration. A lot of competition between Warren, Sanders, and Harris for that second place spot, but it seems like Sanders is prevailing as of right now with that spot. Warren is in third, and Harris is in fourth. So Biden is what the Democratic Party likely will refer to as the most electable candidate. Looking at all of the data we have right now, Joe Biden defeats Donald Trump in areas where other Democrats may lose to him or by larger margins than any other Democrat. If we're looking at the national polling data, Trump beats Harris, Trump beats Warren, loses to Sanders, but loses to Biden by double digits. That's something that doesn't necessarily look too well for these other Democratic candidates. Arguability about electability with 2016 candidates Hillary Clinton. That was interesting. Hillary Clinton did not have the data backing her up in terms of electability, just that she had the experience for it. But this time around, Biden outperformed Sanders in polling data, something Hillary Clinton could not do. And the Sanders wing of the Democratic Party definitely argued that Sanders is, in fact, more electable. But this time around, they can't necessarily do that. Biden defeats Trump in Ohio by 8%, whereas Sanders loses by 1, Warren loses by 1, and Harris and Buttigieg tie. It's just really interesting with some of these results. But as of right now, Joe Biden seems like he is the most electable candidate. So let's go ahead and fill in these safe Democratic states that would not include Idaho for obvious reasons. But let's go ahead and fill in all the northeastern states, Illinois as well. I guess that's not entirely it. Obviously, there's some other areas. I think I'm missing one. Generally, I characterize New Mexico as a safe Democratic state. With Joe Biden, I actually do think that one would be safe. But we're going to come back to it just like yesterday's video. As for Trump, he will have a number of these, I guess, central states that will be considered safe for him. So let's go ahead and fill those in right now. Let's make Nebraska second, a toss-up, and then go up to the Northeast. There's not much to focus on there. So 125 for Trump and 182 for Biden. So let's look at these 231 toss-up electoral votes. I actually want to get out of the way the states that would be considered likely states for either political party. So Virginia is definitely one of them. I think that one would be considered likely for Joe Biden, especially with, the overall trend that we've been seeing in states like Virginia and other states that I'll bring up in a moment. In favor of the Democratic Party, there's no reason as to why it wouldn't be likely. Unless there's some really bad Democratic candidate, generally the state will vote the same regardless of who the Dem nominee is. Same thing with the state of Texas. That one would be likely for Trump regardless of most Democrats, except for people like possibly Beto O'Rourke or Julian Castro, and even then, really comes down to campaigning. I think this will be a 5-6% victory for Donald Trump. Moving over into some of these other Democratic states, New Mexico I'm actually going to consider safe. I think Joe Biden would have a stronger appeal to minorities just because he's so closely tied to the President Obama administration. I think he's going to be smart about who he chooses for his VP nom. Not dropping names here, but I think that it will be someone that will be able to help him amongst minority voters. Because if we're looking at the electorate, yes, they want to win back those white voters, and they can do that with Joe Biden, but they also want to inspire a crowd that typically doesn't vote. One that voted in 2008 but didn't vote in 2016, one that got Obama elected but also stayed home and got Trump elected. Obviously, some Democrats that voted for Obama flipped over to the GOP and voted for Trump, but I think the Democratic Party is going for both of those demographic groups, the ones that stayed home in 2016 and the ones that flipped voting. And I think with Biden at the top, they have the Rust Belt in a pretty good place, but they definitely are going to try to make up for it in other places as well. This puts Biden at 200. I would consider Colorado a likely Democratic state. If we're looking at trends here as well, looks like Colorado is going to be a pretty solid Democratic state, possibly in the future as well if we're looking at 2024. By the way, we'll be coming out with a 2024 video in the near future. Make sure to stay tuned for that. So 209 for Biden, 163 for Trump. Where can Trump make up the margin? Well, we look over at states like Georgia and North Carolina, both of which I'd actually characterize as lean GOP states. Now, North Carolina would be closer than Georgia, but I think that Biden would have a really good appeal to African American voters, voters that pretty much dominate the Democratic electorate in Georgia and North Carolina. And it's a state that if Democrats are able to inspire African Americans to come out and vote, I don't necessarily think both of these states are going to flip. Even with someone like Joe Biden, it's really hard to flip these two Republican states. I mean, both of these states went for Romney back in 2012, Trump in 2016. One of them went to McCain in 2008, and both to Bush before. The last time North Carolina went blue before 2008, I believe, was either with Carter, and 2008 was 14,000 votes in favor of Barack Obama. In his wave election, he won Indiana more than he won North Carolina, percentage-wise, which is pretty insane. But North Carolina and Georgia, I would consider both of those lean GOP states just right now. Obviously, they could change in the future. As of right now, I don't think Biden is going to be able to flip them just yet. Nebraska's second, I would consider a lean GOP district. That one, I don't see many Democrats actually doing too well there. Maybe Amy Klobuchar at most. But even then, Nebraska's second district is going to be pretty good for Donald Trump. Maine at large, I think, would go to Biden. Maine's first district. I do think Donald Trump would narrowly, and I mean narrowly, win on Maine's second district. Although Biden does have an Obama-like appeal, I think that Donald Trump would have just a little bit stronger of a grip on those voters that voted for him by double digits back in 2016. So Trump is at 196. The Democrats are at 212. We still have the entire Rust Belt open. I would actually characterize New Hampshire right now as a likely Democratic state. I think that Joe Biden is going to do extremely well in the state of New Hampshire. You know, it could move over into the lean, but I think that this could possibly 5-6% for Joe Biden. It was a really strong lead for Obama in 2008, in 2012 as well. 2016 was not necessarily the case for the Democratic Party, but I would say New Hampshire moves back into the likely Democratic column. But I think that Trump is going to do well in Florida. I think that he's going to be able to hold on to the same base that he had back in 2016 and 2018 as well. If we're looking, it doesn't look like Florida is going to go completely in favor and flip to the Democratic Party. Definitely is going to get very, very close. Things definitely can change overnight, but Florida, as of right now, I'm going to characterize as a tilt GOP state, putting Donald Trump at 225 and Biden at 216. So if we're looking at some other Democratic states, Nevada I'd actually characterize as likely. I think that Biden would be able to do well amongst Latino voters, just like a couple of other candidates. I would say that Nevada would be a likely Democratic state. Minnesota joining the likely Democratic state, characterization as well. I actually would characterize Pennsylvania as a likely Democratic state. If we're looking where Joe Biden was from, he was a major part of Obama's 2008 campaigning in the Rust Belt. If we're looking at the state of Pennsylvania, it's Donald Trump number one. His approval rating is extremely low there. Biden definitely would be a lot more favored in Pennsylvania, the state that he's from, and would have a much better appeal to the white working class compared to someone like Hillary Clinton, who barely lost the three states, might I add, back in 2016. Pennsylvania, I think, would go by a likely margin to Joe Biden. But I do think that Ohio and Iowa are both going to go to Donald Trump, and you need a really specific Midwest-type, white working class-type candidate to win there. Yes, winning the Rust Belt is sort of similar to winning in Iowa and Ohio, and yes, they may have similar approval ratings, but the electorates there are not exactly the same. You can win in the Rust Belt and lose in Iowa and Ohio, just it's not too typical, but in 2020, it could be a very real reality for a number of these Democrats. And Wisconsin, I think, will be a lean Democratic state, joined by the state of Minnesota, state of Michigan, putting Biden as the 46th president of the United States of America at 278 to Trump's 249. So we've left one state, and that is the state of Arizona. And this state, I actually think, will be a tilt Democratic state. The state loves centrist Democrats, as we saw with Kristen Sinema. And if we're looking in 2020, the Democratic Party may just have that tiny shift in favor of centrist Democrats from the demographic shift. And if we're looking at Arizona itself, it's definitely taking a lot more steps into becoming a more Democratic state. The Senate and House almost always favor the Democrats more in presidential election years, even if they do lose in the Electoral College. I think Arizona will have that final push to flip to being a Democratic state very narrowly because of Biden being able to bring out some voters that haven't been tapped since 2008 or 2012. So that wraps up this video. Joe Biden 289, Donald Trump 249. Obviously, a number of these districts or states could flip, which is why they're characterized as lean and some are characterized as safe and likely. I'm much more confident in the likely safe states compared to the lean tilt ones. Obviously, again, things can happen before 2020, but this is how I think it would stand today on Sunday, July 28th, 2019. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.